Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Welsh, and I am here today with Payroll for Construction. I want to start by thanking everybody for attending today's webinar on payroll processing without the process, where we will discuss, payroll for construction, kind of how it works, what we do, and how we might be able to help you out. Today is a listen-only broadcast, so if you do have questions and if you're familiar with GoToWebinar, you can type them in. There should be a little on your little toolbar. There should be a little section that says questions that you can type in. They only come to me, and then I will answer them. Some I may answer right on the spot if kind of that's where we're at. Others I may wait till the end, but at the very least, I will make sure every single person's questions are answered before we leave today. Keep in mind, today is a high-level overview, so we encourage anybody, if anything intrigues you here today, to feel free to reach out. We can do more of a live one-on-one demonstration where we can basically, tailor this more specific to your needs. You can stop me, you can talk as I move along, ask questions. It's a little more interactive, and of course, the most important part, it is more focused specifically on your company and what you have going on. But this should give you a good idea, enough to, hey, this would line up for me, wouldn't line up for me. And then again, we can always take those next steps to do more demonstrations. So what I'll do is I'll start with kind of the traditional items here. So checks, direct deposits, pay your taxes, your quarterlies, your annual returns. So every payroll service is going to do this, right? So this is not what makes us different, but I must ensure and let people know that if you come over to us, similar to an ADP or Paychex, we're going to keep you tax compliant. We're going to ensure your employees are paid on time and accurately. And then all those quarter, end log jams. I know we're heading into year end where W-2s, potentially ACA, 1095 stuff all comes into play that, again, doesn't happen every week of payroll, but it really does, put a log jam in there when it comes to quarter end, year end and stuff, especially as you head into year end with holidays. So we would be able to help with all of these items as well. Okay. Now also, we are I'm just going to spend a few minutes on a PowerPoint because really we can get into this, into the actual online service because that's the most important part. That's going to be the make it or break it. But we are an online service. So the good news is you can access your payroll records, your reporting, and submit us payroll from any computer with internet access. We do this in all 50 states. So whether you're the contractor who, your business, your employees, your work all reside in one state, we got you covered. If you are a contractor that has employees that are spread across multiple states or jobs that are spread across multiple states, now things can get even messier with payroll because you're not just keeping up with, one state tax law. These things change, state taxes. We're seeing a lot of states implement city or county taxes. There's family paid medical leave stuff that just, again, becomes a lot to manage and track, especially as most of the people that come to us, they're not in one role. They're not just sitting there waiting once a week to do payroll. They are wearing many other hats. So these are things that we can help with the processing part. Now, where we really become unique and what we really focus on is our union, government, prevailing wage, multi-state contractors. Again, that is where payroll becomes a lot more messy than just, hey, Bob makes $20 an hour times 40 hours a week equals this. Taxes all go to one state. I don't need any of this compliance reporting on the back end. That stuff, not that we couldn't process that payroll, but again, the more complex, the more messy your payroll is, especially again, when you get into union, government, prevailing wage. That is where not only can we help with the paying your employees and paying your taxes, which anybody in that type of payroll knows, that's not where payroll ends. That's kind of the beginning part of payroll. After that comes job costing, certified, union, EEO, minority compliance reporting, and things like that. Now, why we're so good at what we do and why we're so unique, and you're going to see this in a second. Some folks here today may have heard of this, others may have not. I want to be very clear. We are not here to talk to you today about changing your accounting platform. However, we have multiple companies here. Where it all started was with foundation software, which is when somebody outgrows a QuickBooks or a Sage and they're looking for a more construction-specific ERP platform, we have that. Again, nobody needs to leave QuickBooks or their current accounting platform to be able to utilize our service. We would integrate our payroll data, your general ledger, your job costing data back to QuickBooks or other accounting platforms. So this would be a standalone payroll service, but when I leave this PowerPoint here in a second, what you're going to see is nothing that says payroll for construction. You're going to see foundation, but we just give you access to the general ledger, job cost, and payroll modules of that system so that, again, you don't have to leave whatever accounting platform you're on. We would be a standalone third-party payroll service provider. Okay, so things we do, some of this is kind of recap here, is multi-state, multi-city, different rates. So as they go from private jobs to public jobs, depending on potentially what they are doing on those jobs, that could have these rates flying all over the place, which can be a nightmare to manage. Of course, it's manageable, but with a lot of manual manipulation and work being done on your end, as opposed to our system's built for this, and in a second I'll show you how we can make life easier there. Fringe calculations, union calcs. If you're taking a credit because you're a non-union company, but you already offer PTO, health, medical, that again can mean not only do I have different rates per job per class, but those rates now can start to vary per employee. Same with union, depending on what state you're in, how close these unions are. As you go from this part of the state to the other, or from state A to state B, those pay rates and fringes could also change. Workers' compensation, huge. Tracking, compliance reporting. While we do not pay the union or workers' comp, it's all a part of payroll. We track it. I'll get to the end here where I show you some reporting and stuff like that as well. So whether you have different workers' comp policies per state, whether you have different workers' comp classes that are tied to the employee or potentially tied to what the employee is doing, we can track and provide reports for all that. Then the back end, the compliance reporting. I'll touch on the job cost and burden cost as well, because some people, some systems claim to understand job costing. And if you're just going to take, again, that example of Bob's $20 an hour times 40 hours that went to job one, simple math, that's $800. But as the employer, there's burden, FICA, FUTA, SUTA, workers' compensation, non-union fringes. I pay a portion of their health, their 401k, their dental, or union fringes that you have to pay to the union on that employee's behalf. These are all a part of your overall cost. We capture all this and we push it back to your accounting system, because as much job costing as we can give you as a payroll service, which we can give you quite a bit, that doesn't mean there's not things that are being captured in that accounting system, such as, materials, purchase orders, subcontracts, change orders. So we truly understand your type of payroll here at Payroll for Construction, and we know it's important to get it back to that accounting ERP system because you're just using us for payroll. We can at least give you that missing piece of the labor and burden back by job. Some other things that make us different: we integrate with QuickBooks, many other accounting platforms as well. Now, probably one of the biggest things is we only do construction payroll. So a lot of my folks that come to me from the more, traditional, larger payroll providers commonly ask, hey, do I have one person, one account manager? And when I tell them, you'll have one trainer up front, get to know you, set it up the right way. However, after you're a longtime client, you could talk to one of 60, 70 support reps. That can be concerning because what they're used to doing is having to teach their account manager, quote unquote, how their payroll works, why it works the way it does. And every time that person is not available, the next person in line just doesn't know what they're doing because they just don't support this type of payroll. So with us, everybody supports this type of payroll. It's the only client we have here. So you'll see elevated support there. We have different ways to get time into our system. So if you're using a mobile app, most of them can export the data to us. If you aren't, we have a couple different mobile options. For time purposes today, I won't be able to get into them, but just letting you know that you don't have to manually enter a time card like you might see me do today. If that's what you're going to do because, hey, Jim, we've tried apps, our field staff's just not ready or going to use them. So We have the ability to enter time in here like any service does. We have a couple different mobile app options. But if you're on a mobile app that you're happy with, we always look there first to see, hey, can that app export data and we can import it? Because changing in the office is one thing. Changing in the field is a completely different ballgame. So if we don't have to, we're not going to just try to force other products we have on you. We will stick with what is working and make it work with ours. Now, you can also have people access their pay stubs online. We actually recently, depending on the size of your company, came out with a new HR platform where it can be anywhere from employees can change their address, phone numbers, bank accounts, dependents, contacts, get their pay stubs, all the way to full on, HR onboarding new employees, certification management, document storage and sign off. So we have quite a bit here that's geared towards nothing but the construction industry, but we'll stay focused on payroll today because if that doesn't line up, well then, you won't use our other products, but that's where more of a one-on-one demo, we could get together and we could see if any of those other products align. Okay, I'll come back to this here at the end. That way, if anybody wants to jot down my contact information, they want a quote, a personalized demo, have questions after that, you can reach directly out to me. So we'll come back to this in a second. Now where I'm going, though, is to that platform that we would do a demo on. We would teach you this. We would help set this up. We would train you. So you're not going to be expected to, whether you attend the webinar, or whether we do a one-on-one personalized demo, whether we do 2 or 3 demos, we're still always going to have a trainer working with you. So where I'll start is where the language is pretty clear that this is what we handle. So every employee can have a base pay rate or a private rate. Even every employee can have in their record their union and their work classification. But again, this stuff could change based on the job. So we can override unions. We can override state income tax. We can override prevailing wage rate and fringe rates, pay rates and fringe rates on a per job level, which I'll go to in a second. But this is where we won't oversell you on the fact that we don't have them all loaded in here, nor would you want them. If you're a California contractor, what would you care about the union or prevailing wage rates in New York, New Jersey, Ohio? So we do rely on each client to say, hey, here is the current unions or prevailing wage rates and fringes for our classes, and we'll help build these out for you. But this is where this table can eventually be tied to a job. This is where if I'm a union contractor, if I have 20 journeyman electricians and this rate increases to $30, we'll talk about when in a second. But this is where basically if I update that, it updates everybody in one fell swoop. Now, the only time for at least my union contractors that I would need to touch a rate in an employee's record is if you told me electrician number 19 and 20, he and she, one we pay $1 above scale, one we pay $2. That's okay. We're built to handle that as well. That just means that union employee, instead of having a rate of 0, where it would grab from this table, it would compare the rate on the table to that 31, know the 31's higher and use that for that employee. And then the next it would use 32 for. The other good thing about these rate tables is their effective dates. These things change, sometimes once, sometimes twice a year. You could tell us today, especially on the union side, these rates are going to go up April 1st. Us or you could change them today, set that effective date. It's not going to interfere with the next 6 months or so of payroll. However, as time is entered, imported, or comes over from one of our apps, if Monday and Tuesday are the 30th and 31st of March and Wednesday's April 1st, it'll use in one paycheck, one payroll run, no starting and stopping. It will do all that for you and change the rate midweek automatically. And then for visibility purposes, we know that's huge. We got to make sure these employees, these unions, these government state agencies for certified can see that you did what you were supposed to when you were supposed to. So it will timestamp that on paychecks, certified, union, reports, so that that visibility is still there for everybody outside of the office. Okay, deduction fringes. This is, again, kind of a wide net pitch here today, as I don't know who's union versus non-union. But if you're union, they're telling you what to call these, whether it comes from the employer, comes from you, how it's supposed to calculate, what it's supposed to calculate, and what it's supposed to be taxed or how it's supposed to be taxed. So we'll build these out for you. We can roll these over as well. Now, if I'm non-union, just depends on what you're doing. I can do anything from that goes into the employee's paycheck and is taxed. We don't reduce anything from it, just goes to the employee. If I'm putting this into one benefit plan or multiple, we can label that as non-taxable. So it shows on their paycheck, but doesn't technically go to them as income or earnings. It goes to some plan. And again, whether I want to put that into one bucket or multiple, you just got to give us the roadmap for that and we'll set it up. We will set up workers' comp. We can import your employees in. Again, we're not paying this. We're not paying the union. We are just the tracking and reporting mechanism for you for audit and payment and making sure it's a part of your job costing. Employees, pretty standard here. If anybody at the end has questions or if we do a one-on-one and you want to get into an employee's record, we can. But pretty standard here. You can track PTO, deductions, loans, garnishments, obviously taxes, rates of pay, historical changes to rates, all that stuff that you can through most services. Okay, now for what does a typical week look like for a client? How is the payroll processed? What am I going to do as an end user to make this work should I choose to go with Payroll for Construction? And it boils down to three things: jobs, time, and reports. So when I go into a job record, it is going to look pretty intense, meaning, wow, Jim, that's a lot of info I got to fill out. You're not filling out 99% of this because you're tracking most of it in your accounting system. However, no job costing. So this is where I can come in here and put in customer A, job 123. We can tie back to job names or numbers. So if you're QuickBooks and using more names, that's fine. If you're using a Sage or something else, we're using some job ID. We can tie back to that as well. Now, this is where if I'm not a multi-state contractor, this isn't certified, there's no different unions or rates involved, I'm done. But this is also where the overrides become very important. This is where basically I can come in here and say, this job, though we are in Illinois, is in Wisconsin. So hours recorded to this job will divert taxes to Wisconsin, and then, of course, as your service, we would pay those. This is where I'm getting my certified payroll. We have many different forms, which we'll talk about in a second. This is where finally I am going to override and put a rate and fringe schedule or table on the job, or override and say, hey, my electricians coming from local 127 are following local 38. If our rates are higher, it can use ours. If theirs are higher and we have to use theirs, it'll use theirs. This is asking what benefits out of the job union, in this case, local 38, do we need to report to local 38? Most of the time, it's the whole package, deductions and fringes. But some of these portability agreements can get more convoluted than that, and that's where we can select certain go to the job, others go back home. So this is where, by taking a few additional seconds on a job, we can say what's unique about that job. So as our employees are bouncing all over the place, nobody on the payroll end is having to manually adjust this stuff. Okay, again, time can be entered, imported, or sunk in. So I won't spend a ton of time here, but just to prove that this ties out and works, I can select an employee. I'm in a non-union environment here, just to be clear. I can code hours to different jobs, different days, or all in the same day. There's no limit here. This is just a general example. But this is where, as I code this data in, or it comes over, as long as it's the job, the hours, potentially the work class, depending on what you have going on, I don't need to touch the rate, the taxes, the union, anything, because the system just knows here, hey, these jobs weren't, so it pulls in the private rate. This job was prevailing wage, so it pulled in the rate schedule, and it was tied to electrician. If I adjust him to a foreman, it will then pull in whatever the rate for a foreman is. Now, if I coded this job wrong, and I say, wait a minute, that was the Lake County Trust job, and I click off, it gets rid of that, and when I hit OK, it's going to bring in that different rate because it's prevailing wage as well. System can automate overtime after 8 in a day or 40 in a week. We can pay things like reimbursements, vacation, bonuses, whatever you have going on, we can handle. Now for the reporting. So there's going to be reporting available before you submit and then, of course, after. So if I just want to see whether it was imported, it came over from our app, or I entered it, I just want to see a quick list of employees, days, jobs, regular overtime, what city or state they were working in for taxing purposes. I can see that. Whether I entered it or imported it from a different app or our app, I can still drill in to edit it. I can also run just about every report in here by employee or by job. So if I wanted that same list by job, our criteria pages allow you to search for any employee, any job, any date range, regular versus overtime, union A versus Z. I can use criteria to filter, and instead of looking at a giant report with a ton of data on it, I can really start filtering in and out what I want to see. And then, I can export these, print them, PDF, Word, Excel, CSV. I can also look at the dollars. Registers in our system are dollars. Proofing is just hours. But I can see what paychecks are going to look like, taxes are going to look like. I can see all that stuff before I eventually submit. Now, submitting is going to, again, turn us into doing the traditional payroll duties as well, meaning checks, direct deposits, city, state, Fed taxes, unemployment, garnishments, W-2s, quarterlies. So once you submit, we give you a bill. There's no surprises. What we pull the next day. So you have time to react, call with questions. If there are mistakes after payroll, which there will be, that's okay. We will help rectify those. We have what's called a correction or adjustment genie. So we know no matter how much time you put into this, how perfect you are, the system is, you're dealing with employees, entities, agencies that just don't always pass you along accurate information in a timely fashion. So when that happens, well, you have to correct that. But with us, you're leaning on us to tell us the mistake. We put it through the correction genie. It updates QuickBooks, certified, union, job costing, and then any difference in pay that needed to go to that employee or taxing authority if that was the case. As your service, we would handle that for you. Okay. Now, the other reports. So as I come over here, there's a ton of them. We're going to find what each end user, which could be different. You can have more than one person in here at a time. Different levels of security, roles, different schedule of quick links. But this is where we'll start plucking the reports each company and user wants and putting them in a flow chart so you're not swimming on the back end with all the different reports, because there's more than what you need, more than likely. But this is where if I needed like a workers' comp report, I could get it, and I could get like the cap breakout. Some people call it the cap, the payroll limit. Our report calls it earning exposure. But this is where basically it's reporting, well, I had to pay this employee $63 because it was overtime. I only have to report to you, workers' comp, the straight portion. So each policy is different. That's why we ask it to be sent over to us. Okay. Somebody's asking, can you create custom reports? Yes, to a level. So data genies are good for, it's really employee reports. Most of the criteria pages in here allow you to make the reports flexible, but they still are somewhat hard-coded there. But this is where I could pull from job or employee records anything I want that is in there and filled out. So first name, last name. Hey, I want to know drug test date and result if I had those in as user-defined fields. I want to run a pay raise report. So I want to see their historical, actual date of increase, what the rate went from to. So instead of me going from employee record A through Z, if I just want to know, hey, it's time to give out raises, I want to see what they were making last year, when we gave them their actual last increase without bouncing through 20 employee records, I could build some reports here. Now, we can build custom reports, but being honest, we don't find many people needing them once we get them used to our reports. It takes time to adjust, that's for sure. But what we do find that we need to build sometimes are custom files. Reports are different because you adjust your eyes to them. Now, files that need to go into a different system, well, that's got to be pretty darn particular. So, for example, I could come over here and tell you, hey, look, we have a 401k report. This 401k report can absolutely be kicked to Excel or CSV. But if this is missing data or not in the exact order that 401k provider wants it, it's not going to let you upload it unless you start manipulating that file. That's where when we deal with clients and they say, well, hey, I need a file for 401k or for Union X, those are things we will ask to be sent over before you sign up so that, one, we can confirm we can do it, and two, if there are any associated one-time costs with it, we provide that to you before you sign up. So as much as you want to make sure this is going to work, we do as well. This is no long-term contract. No, you're stuck with us. This is, it works. We all put in a bunch of effort up front, us more so even than you, to get this ready. We don't want to get to the end where, well, hey, something isn't going to work here, so we're going to pull the plug on this, you as the end user client, and then we all just spun our wheels and wasted time. We'll do a very good job, and that's why we recommend those one-on-one demonstrations where maybe there are things unique to you that we could even show you more to help you out, or maybe there's stuff that may not work out. So those one-on-one demos are where, we can stop, pause, and be a little more specific there. EEO minority compliance, again, that's where we don't just have one, even though mine's on generic, so I guess we have one labeled generic, but this is where as you start, depending on where you're at in the U.S., there are different things here. So this is where, for some of my clients, this might suffice, but if you're in a different state, there may be different reporting. We do a very good job of it if it is a compliance report, updating it and adding it in. So for example, even with certified payroll, we have print and electronic. Now I have to run an update. But a new one that just came out is New Jersey now has a portal you have to go to. That is where you don't see it, but once I run an update, could prove to you, there's a button you can click to upload to all these agencies. This is where we're seeing everybody head, meaning not saying people don't still need printed versions, and I won't click on every one for time purposes because I want to open it up for questions in a second, but this is where there are all these versions, like even these California ones here. These are pretty useless these days. They use California Department of Industrial Relations has a website. LCP Tracker's big out there, and it's big everywhere. It's becoming more and more popular where even if your payroll service can look at you and say, again, my New Jersey one, if I go to somebody today in New Jersey and say, hey, here's this one, here's this piece of paper, well, I did a portion of the work for them, meaning they have all the numbers they need, the employees, the classes, the regular versus overtime, the hours, the earnings on this job versus for the entire week, but they got to then go hand key that into a website. So while we have all the state, the Fed, Department of Labor stuff, we have them all here. So if you need paper, great. We have you covered. Whether you were on the job or not, signature pages, print, sign, send. But more than likely, even if it's not today, in the very near future, they will tell you, great, whatever system or service you use that printed that, that's great. You need to go to this website to report. And the reason is because these websites are built to do the checking, write rates, write this. The state, the feds, the the state, the feds, the cities don't have to pay to have somebody go through these manually. So like everything, things are going online, going electronic. So this is where with us, we stay up to date with this because if not, we lose a lot of clients. And that's where this data here that looks pretty messy, it's because it's laid out to have a file created that you can then go to those websites and hit upload and get back to your other duties here. So from that to job costing to seeing what it really costs you to run an employee. For example, Rick makes $15 an hour on private work in my system. 40 times 15 is 600. When I add in everything else, it lets me know Rick's true to the penny cost is $18.41. So we're grabbing these numbers and pushing them back to the accounting system. And then if you need union by job or just a union summary, you can come in here and get by union, by date, your company, the employees, the hours with total, the gross with total, total into each benefit. And then if somebody looks at me and says, well, I need the labor class on here. I need regular versus overtime broken out. That's where, again, one report, depending on what is being done on this criteria page, could look completely different. And that's where we can kind of, without having to build you a ton of custom reports, hey, we just may need to go into our criteria settings of the reports we have and tweak a few things and then get it the way you want it. So this here is where we will set this up. We will train you. We will help with all this, and we will support you from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Even on our West Coast, that's 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we have clients all over the country. We accommodate and work with all of them. So anytime you need help, whether it's the initial setup, the training, the testing, or you've been a client for 2 years and something popped up that you need help with, you will always talk to a live receptionist that works for us, a live support rep that only supports the type of payroll you're dealing with. So this is where processing payroll without the process and some of these manual changes, nuances, compliance reporting that takes, the basics of paying employees and taxes and multiplies that by 10 with all of these other things you have to do before and after payroll to keep payroll moving. We can eliminate quite a bit of that stuff by just, hey, put in the job, get us the time by entering, importing, or using one of our apps, and then just submit off your compliance reports that are auto-generated for you with no manual manipulation necessary, and that's how we can keep you moving into other areas of your business. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up here. I like to keep these to about 30 minutes here. We're right at about that point, but any questions, feel free to type those in right now, and I can get any of those answered. I'll give everybody a second. Okay, somebody's asking a good question here on what happens if we terminate somebody. So be it whether it's union, non-union, if you terminate somebody and need to do a check immediately, you can do that through us. We're powered by parts of an accounting system, so we can open up the print option where you put it in, you don't have to call, email, wait on us. You mark it as an in-house payment. You don't get charged by us another base processing fee. And then what happens is that you just do the check on your end. Keep yourself moving again. And then the next payroll that comes over that is for true processing, let's call it a scheduled payroll, we would not pay that employee. We would pay all the others, but we would comb all the taxes through and make the tax payments to those agencies. Okay, somebody else is asking here about the mobile app, GPS. Yeah, we have a couple different options with mobile. With that being said, both of them can track where the employee clocked in and out of. One of them actually has facial recognition. So one of them, you can capture not just where they're at, but make sure it was who they said they were. And then that data would sync over here. You'd skip the enter time part. And then, that time would push over to us. And we also have methods where people look at us and say, well, our folks aren't going to clock in and out, or I'm not going to put this app in every employee's hand. I just am going to have foremans do this, and I just want to get away from paper. I just want an easy platform for them to go to be able to simply say, I had these 5 employees on job 1 for 4 hours today. Then I had these 4 employees on job 2 for 4 hours today as well. So that's where, again, once we have more personalized conversations, I get a better feel for your company, what you have going on, what you're looking for. That's where we can really, again, not put 100 products in front of you, but hey, here's the product or the couple products that may help you. Let me show you how it would work best for you, and then let you decide on if, hey, for cost, is this going to save us enough time? Same with the HR, certification management, document sign off, where you can really get away from, a lot of these folks don't come to the office anymore. They go right to the job, or they're working so far away. So we're putting technology in front of you that makes life easier, but also we have options to put technology in front of the employees that has been built and geared towards the type of employees you have out there working, and not this overly sophisticated system that, in theory is great and will work, but depending on the end user, it may not, due to, it being too complex or just having too much involved with it. So any of those solutions you're ever looking at, we got you covered. Okay, any other Questions for today, again, I'm going to pop this up real quick here where you can jot down my email, my name. You can call, email, even if it's just, Jim, I want a quote, let me know. We here are not going to hound you. We know that it's all about the right fit, but also the right timing. So we are not going to call you every day, every week to say, hey, are you ready yet? So if you want to reach out, any additional info, or you want to schedule a live demo, let me know. Live demo usually takes about 30, 45 minutes, depending on, hey, are you more of a, I just like to sit the first time, watch, observe, and let it sink in, or hey, I'm going to have a lot of questions as we go. We're fine either way, but depending on that, could be 30 minutes to an hour tops to cover this stuff. So again, my name is Jim Welsh with Payroll for Construction. Want to thank everybody for their time today. I know how hard it is to carve out even 30 minutes. So thank you folks so very much for giving me a chance to talk to you today, and hopefully I'll hear from some of you soon. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your week.